Ever feel that, like, dot pull? That fascination with things so big they could reshape the world just by, like, showing up?
It's interesting you put it that way, as a pull, because it's not just about their size, is it? It's the force they embody. Makes you question the whole idea of order and consequence.
Right. And what gets me is these colossal figures, they pop up all over the world. Like in Genesis, we've got the Nephilim, born from this, well, forbidden union between the divine and humans. Then there's the Titans over in ancient Greece, right, existing even before the Olympian gods.
And that's where this deep dive gets really interesting. These stories, even though they're from totally different cultures, they hit on similar anxieties. Overreaching, the fight for power, that line between creation and utter chaos.
So, the Nephilim. They're often described as offspring of sons of God and daughters of men, which already sets off some red flags, right? Talk about breaking boundaries.
Their very existence throws a wrench in the whole system, blurs the lines between divine and mortal. Just picture the audacity. Beings born from this forbidden love, inheriting power that could shake the heavens.
Like the ultimate what were they thinking moment in mythology, haha. But what always gets me is the imagery they're shown with these weapons, right? Forged from, get this, angel bones.
Oh, that's not just a cool visual. That detail speaks volumes. It screams defiance. Using bits of the divine for their own ends makes you wonder, what happens when the power to challenge the gods ends up in their kids' hands?
Chills, man, chills. Okay, so then you've got the Titans, and they're not just big and strong. We're talking forces of nature.
Exactly. Kronos, time itself. Oceanus, the untamable ocean. These are primal. They were here before the world as we know it. Makes the Nephilim's rebellion seem, well, almost small scale in comparison.
Like one's talking back to your parents, the other's a freaking earthquake, one's about pushing boundaries, the other eye is chaos.
And yet, both mess with our sense of power, don't they? It makes us ask what happens when things go off the rails. Consequences of wanting too much. Are there any forces, even huge ones, that can't be controlled?
And those questions, I think, are why we're still hooked on these myths. But before we get too deep, got to talk about the main event, the battle to end all battles. The one that messed up the world for good.
Ah, yes. The clash of the Titans. Literally. Not just a brawl. This was for keeps. To rewrite reality itself. And it all starts with, well, this might sound weird, a spark.
So we've got these like primal forces, the Titans, right? Going head to head with the Nephilim, our poster children for defiance. If you were directing this fight scene, how do you even start to put that on screen?
Picture this. A canvas so huge it's got heaven on one side, earth on the other. Volcanoes erupt where the Titans walk, mountains crumble at their feet, and the oceans, those are Oceanus's playground, while Hyperion storms gather around him, crackling with raw power.
And amidst all that, you've got the Nephilim holding their own. But it's not just raw power they're up against, is it? These are beings who are fundamental forces, like time itself.
Exactly. Imagine Kronos, not just as some muscle-bound dude, but as the unstoppable march of time itself trying to wear you down just by existing. Or Oceanus, not swing a sword, but as the ocean's depths, ready to just swallow you whole.
Okay, now that's scary. It's like they're fighting the laws of physics. But the Nephilim, they're fighters, born from this act of defiance, right? And wielding angelic weaponry. What's their game plan against that?
Strategy. I'm not sure they have one, beyond pure, stubborn defiance. Remember, they were born from transgression, from saying no to the way things were supposed to be.
Yeah.
They fight with this desperate fury because to them, just existing is an act of rebellion.
But can fury, even a lot of it, really stand up to, like, Kronos' scythe? That thing's supposed to be able to cut time. That feels like a game ender, even for a giant.
You're right to focus on that side. It's the embodiment of his power over time. Think about it. Being trapped in a time loop, forced to relive your defeat over and over, or having your movements slow to a crawl while the world moves on.
Okay, stop. That's messed up. It's like psychological warfare on a cosmic scale. So how do they even counter that?
And here's the interesting bit about the Nephilim. Their existence, from the jump, is already a disruption of time. They're the result of a union that should never have happened. So, in a way, they're outside of Kronos' reach. He can influence them, sure, but never fully control them.
So they're kind of like immune to his time powers. That's one way to level the playing field. But what about the other Titans? They're not just going to sit this one out, right?
Of course not. This isn't just a pub brawl. This is for total domination. This is about who gets to decide the fate of everything. Each Titan's unleashed, giving it their all, and the world is literally cracking under the strain.
And through it all, the Nephilim are pushing back with their angel bone weapons. I gotta ask though, is there even a winner in this kind of fight? Or is it just whoever destroys everything first?
That's a question for the ages, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like any good story, there's a turning point. And it all comes down to, you guessed it, that scythe.
Okay, so the scythe, the time-cutting superweapon. What happens? One of the Nephilim gets a hold of it?
Not exactly. Imagine this. Kronos, he's furious. These Nephilim just will not go down. He gathers all his power for one massive world-ending blow, raises the scythe, ready to wipe them out with one swing.
I can't even imagine the tension, the fate of, well, literally everything on the line. What did the Nephilim do?
They do the unexpected. Anak, their leader, the most defiant one of the bunch, he steps forward, doesn't try to dodge or anything. He just meets the scythe head on with his own weapon, that angel bone blade.
He's trying to Bealos the scythe, the time-cutting scythe, with a sword. That's not going to work out well, right?
It's a huge gamble, absolutely. But remember, the Nephilim, they live in the space between what's possible and what should be impossible. And in this moment, crazy as it seems, it pays off. So
what happens? Does he deflect it?
The sound of those two weapons meeting, they say it echoed through time itself. Because what happens isn't a clang, it's a shattering. Kronos' scythe, the very thing that gives him dominion over time, breaks into a million pieces.
Whoa, the sigh, the symbol of his power, gone. That's not just a win, that's symbolic, man. What does that do to the Titans, to the fight itself?
It changes everything. The Titans, used to being the biggest, baddest things around, they hesitate. Their control over the elements flickers. Even Kronos, he looks smaller somehow, less sure.
So the Nephilim, just by being stubborn as heck, they turn the tide. But does that mean they win? And what happens to a world that's just been through, well, that?
Those are the questions, and believe me, they're big ones that we'll dig into as we keep going. Because winning, even against impossible odds, it usually comes with a price tag. And for the Nephilim, that bill is about to come due.
That image, Kronos' scythe shattering. It's like a metaphor, right? Like the impossible becoming possible. But with the Titans down a notch, what happens? Do the Nephilim get to, do a victory dance?
Well, if they did, it was a short one. Because here's the thing, both the Titans and the Nephilim, they messed with the balance of things. And the universe, it likes things a certain way.
So someone's going to come in and clean up the mess, right? And it ain't going to be the guys who started the fight. So who lays down the law?
Think about it. The Titans were around before the gods, right? Primordial stuff. And the Nephilim, they were a big screw you to those same gods. So who's left? Someone even bigger. Even older.
You're talking the creators themselves, the ones who set the whole thing up.
Bingo. The source material is fuzzy here, but it talks about this presence, ancient, so vast, it makes the Titans look like, well, ants, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not just one god, it's like the idea of divinity itself flexing.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps just picturing it. What's the verdict? What happens to everyone now that, the parents have come home?
The Titans, most of them get locked up, back to where they came from. Think of it less as punishment, more like putting the toys back in the box. Order's restored, see?
And the Nephilim. They stared down the gods, went toe-to-toe with the Titans, walked away from a battle that broke time. What about them?
Theirs is a bit more complicated. It wasn't a loss, not exactly.
Right.
But they were always living on borrowed time, weren't they? The product of a broken rule, a cosmic oops.
So they just disappear, like a deleted scene.
Kind of. They get absorbed back into creation, their bodies are gone, their power scattered, like they never were.
Except they're in the story, and we're here talking about them. Which brings us back to why this stuff still gets to us, thousands of years later.
Because deep down, don't we all kind of get it? That desire for more, to push, to see how far we can go. The Nephilim, they're like, our own ambition, writ large, fighting to break free.
And the Titans. Chaos in a nice, neat package. What do they say about us?
They're the reminder that no matter how much we think we're in control, there's always something bigger, unpredictable. The universe reminding us maybe that we're not as big as we like to think we are.
So if the Nephilim are us reaching for the stars, the Titans are us getting knocked back down to Earth. And stuck between those two are still asking the same questions, aren't we?
It makes you think, what's worth the risk? What happens when you push too far? And how much are we willing to give up for that power to choose our own fate, even if it messes everything up?
We started by asking, what is it about giants that gets us so hooked? Turns out, it's not just about how big they are, is it? It's about everything they represent. Our hopes, anxieties, that fascination with power and chaos.
They're a reminder that even winning can cost you. That even the biggest fish got to answer to something. And sometimes, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we can do, they end up shaping the world just as much as any battle.
And with that thought, we leave you to ponder your own WN giants. What would you defy, given the chance? What price would you pay to make your mark on the world?
Until next time, keep exploring those myths, those whispers of giants, the ones in the stories, and maybe the ones inside us all.